look at a few more problems. On this second page, we've got a function f. It's listed out. It's just a bunch of points. And we're told to find some different values. So on this first one, we're told to find f of 2 and figure out what that equals. Well, notice that x here is 2. And so if our x is 2, then we're asking what is going to be our y value for that x value of 2. So let's look through all the points and find the one point that has an x of 2. Well, the only point with an x of 2 is this third point. So it's asking if my x is 2, then what's my y? What am I going to get out, and what will this be equal to, which will be our negative 5 will be what we get out for our y. So f of 2 equals negative 5, and that's my final answer. However, on B, notice they did not fill in an x. They gave us what this is supposed to equal, which means we are already getting out something. Means that this 2 is a y value, and that we're going to be doing the reverse according to them. We should be finding x. We don't know what this x is. That's why it's not filled in. So which of the 4 points has a y value of 2? Well, there's only one. That's the last point, has a y value of 2. The question is, what's its x value? Well, let's go back. Its x value is a 1. So they asked what x would give me this. Well, that would be an x value equal to 1. And that's my final answer. Here's another one. We've got more of a diagram here, and we're trying to find f of negative 3. That means, again, like before, that this negative 3 is an x value. That should be what's going in. So an x value of negative 3 going in gives us what? Well, coming out, it gives us a y value of 2. So this should equal 2. And that's our answer because that's what we got out for y. And this doesn't have to be a diagram. They don't have to give us a bunch of points. They don't have to give us a function. We can still do this with just a graph, is what this next example wants us to realize. That we can still do the same thing. We can find things like f of 2 using a picture. Again, remember, let's see what that means, is that 2 means that you've got an x value. So I'm going to go on my x-axis to 2, figure out where my graph is at 2, and I need to figure out what that y value is. Well, the y value that matches up with my graph there is a y value of 1. So what this means is I need to use this point is when I plug in an x of 2, I get out a y of 1. So my answer is 1. That's the y value you get out. Next one, let's look at f of 0 and figure out what that will equal. On this next one, on B, we have a 0 as our x value that we're plugging in. So I'd go to where 0 is on the x-axis and find my graph. Well, my graph is up here at 0 at what y value? It's at the y value at 2. So that means when I plug in an x of 0, I get out a value of 2. That happens to be your y value that you get out when you have an x value of 0. Okay, last one. Last one, they tell us that f of x equals 0. So notice that on this one, your x is blank. That means you're trying to find x. So that means my answer should be an x value this time for the first time in this problem. So that must mean that the 0 here is a y value. So this time, I'm looking for a y value of 0. That means I haven't gone up or down. Well, the graph has a y value of 0 all the way down here at this point, which happens at an x value of 4. That's what we were looking at. So notice with these functions, either they give me x or they give me y. If they give me x, I'm trying to find y. If they give me y, I'm trying to find x, whether it's a bunch of points, whether it's a picture, whether it's a diagram, whether it's something I can actually plug in. It doesn't matter. It all works the same way. However, more often than not, we're seeing them give our values as x's. Notice if the number is inside parentheses, it's going to go into your function, meaning it's an x. If it's not inside a set of parentheses, it's the thing coming out, meaning it's a y value. That's how we can kind of keep everything straight. So what if we don't have our function written in the f of x notation? That's what we want to do next. But we want it written in the f of x notation. Well, remember we talked about this last time earlier in this section, which is that y is the same thing as f of x. So the idea is if I can just get the y by itself, I can replace any y's with the fancy f of x and just be done. So first of all, what do I need to do if I have something like x plus 4y equals 8? Well, the first thing I need to do is get the y by itself, which is good. We're really used to doing that when we did slope-intercept form, so we're pretty comfortable with that. So to get the y by itself, we'll subtract an x from both sides. And that will give us 4y equals, let's put the x first because we're used to that, negative x plus 8. The last thing we'll do is divide everything straight on through on both sides by a 4, which will give me that y equals negative 1/4 x plus, don't forget, the 8 is also getting divided by a 4. The x needs to get divided by 4, but the 8 also has to get divided by 4, which also gives you a, let's see, a 2 at the end. Now you're almost done. You've got the y by itself. We just need to use the fancy notation instead of the y's. So we're going to replace the y with an f of x. Leave everything else the same, the negative 1/4 x and the plus 2, and we're done.